Hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Meagan, and my amazing co-host is not here. This is usually the time where Amanda would introduce herself, but she is on a family vacation in Indonesia. So we did some recording and prep before she left, but this week I am commandeering the podcast solo and serving up some classic Homeschool Moms Unfiltered content. So here's a glimpse into my master plan for this week. Now, our following has grown a ton since season 1. Like, seriously, it's mind-blowing now when we look at the numbers and we're like, can you believe this many people listen to us talk about homeschooling? This is so cool. So I thought it would be a good week to do some throwback content back from season 1 as a great reminder to everybody who's new here to scroll back and check out some of our early work. What you will notice is that our vibe was a little bit different. We were still secular, we were still progressive as hell, but we were still kind of figuring out podcasting as a whole and what the heck we were doing as brand new podcasters. The advice was still rock solid though, so definitely worth scrolling back and listening to some of the older episodes. We covered some really awesome topics back in season 1 and season 2. Now, for the rest of my master plan, if you've been part of the Homeschool Moms Unfiltered community for any length of time, you know that Amanda and I homeschool very differently. She's an aggressive academic homeschooler, and I am a burn the establishment down unschooler. So she very lovingly, I know it comes with love, rolls her eyes whenever I venture off into my hippy-dippy thoughts about interest-led learning and vision boarding. So since I am left to my own devices this week, without further ado, I would love to present to you our season 1 episode titled Vision Boards and Goal Setting, creating a real-life roadmap for your homeschool journey. And because I've been left unsupervised, feel free to leave a comment wherever you're listening or watching the episode about how much you just love the idea of incorporating vision boarding and goal setting into your homeschool life. Because I am going to screenshot all of them and send them to Amanda while she's drinking margaritas on the beach and be like, they just love vision boarding and goal setting. I think we should cover it some more. Let's do it in season 3 and 4 and 5. So I hope you enjoy this throwback episode, and we will be back next week with brand new content for you. Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Meagan, and my amazing co-host is...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hello. So Homeschool Moms Unfiltered is a haven for secular, progressive homeschool parents. If you show up to your local homeschool events and you continuously have to remind yourself to fix your face when other homeschool parents are spewing conspiracy theories or offensive BS, welcome. You won't find that here. And P.S., the reason that's the opening is because that's what I have to do regularly. And I have to sit there and be like, and then I go, oh, wait, my face is doing that thing. I have to put on the smile. And then I have to be like, So, yeah, I know it. I feel you.
No, right? It's so true. Even when I manage to bite my tongue, my face is so loud, right? Like it says so much. It yells without actually making any sound at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we are talking about goal setting. Perhaps specifically 2025, but truly anytime you feel like you need to reevaluate or hit the reset button, we've got you covered. If you're listening to this when this episode first launches or airs, you might be thinking, okay, people, it is only the end of October. Like, why are you rushing me into the new year and like making new plans? Like, I just want to survive November and December. Okay, we hear you. Truly, we do. But really, we all also know the reality of the situation. Okay, one night you're sitting there sneaking peanut butter cups from your kids' trick-or-treat haul, and then all of a sudden it's the freaking new year. So there's just something about the rush of November and December that makes time like fly faster than usual. So we're talking about it now, and we'll either be ahead of the game in reality or at least in theory.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that, before we dive in, let's do our weekly recap. I things are still insane on your end, but like I know every week I'm like a few more weeks and then it slows down. A few more weeks.
Huh,
Maybe we're at the couple weeks. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm podcasting today from the closet in our primary bedroom. I'm sitting in a dog bed because it's pretty much the only furniture that's left. And so, yeah, we just came back from signing our closing documents on this house. It has been a really tough. We've bought and sold a lot of houses because we've moved so much for my husband's job. This has been brutal. The people that we have sold our house to aren't my favorite people that I've ever dealt with. Let's just put it that way. They've been really fun to deal with. So we just finished signing. So hooray, hooray. We pick up the moving truck tomorrow. Because we're going international, we've gotten rid of pretty much everything we own. So instead of hiring movers, we just got like a little tiny U-Haul to put the last remaining stuff in. And that's that. We'll drive to Florida on Wednesday, get myself situated there over the weekend, celebrate with a friend who's having a birthday. And then on Monday, the kids and I are flying to Poland. So I'm pretty pumped about that. But yeah, I think tomorrow I'm voting. I'm excited about that too, because early voting started in South Carolina today. So I think the greatest thing that will happen is when I get in the car on Wednesday, we start driving for Florida and it's like, it's all just done, right? Like the house is done, the packing's done, the cleaning things out is done. Like, oh, I cannot wait. So it's going to be good. But, we're getting there. My kids are super helpful. My boys, actually, while we're recording, we have what they call convenience centers here, it's a really fancy term for the dump. They will not take anything over what fits in your can at the curb when they come for trash pickup. And so my boys have been making runs to the convenience center today and helping. And I mean, they're just so helpful. So it's been a huge team effort. But I'm really excited for it to be over. Like it's a lot. So it'll feel good when it's done. How about you? How's your week been going, Amanda?
Yeah, they're moving along. I had mentioned last week that we were going to Universal Studios. We did go to Universal Studios. We had a great time. I am way more exhausted than I expected to be. I tried to take it really easy, but it just wasn't enough. And I knew I needed to do the reading for book club for this week. And I told my whole family, like, look, on Sunday, I have to do the reading. And then I was just so tired and my brain was so mushy from the fun, right? Universal Studios that I completely forgot. And like last night at maybe 8:30, I don't know. I think I maybe finally opened a message from you on Messenger or something. It was like, shit. I have to read and I got to type and I'm like, I need to look at what we're supposed to actually record tomorrow. So that's kind of going on. And I have a busy week and, I have my regular board meeting and I'm trying to organize a big food drive that we do. It's supposed to start the beginning of November. So I have to get all of that set up with the local food bank here. And we do that here in our community. And so I have that kind of going on. And then on top of all of it, today was the start of Q2 for the kiddos' online classes. So that's
schedule change.
It's always fun. Yeah. Thankfully, most of the things didn't change too much. It was more like, hey, did you accept the invites for the new links? And like, no, I don't have them. And like, well, you have to go into your email and actually find them and make sure you've got oh, it's okay. I'll just use the old ones. Like, no, that's not how that works. You have to use the new one because it's a new quarter and there's a new link and like just trying to get all of that set up on top of like all the other things. So, but yeah, we made it. I have real clothes on. I put lipstick on. So that counts for something. It's not just lip balm, which is what it usually is. So you should appreciate my lips.
I like it. I know. I put real pants on to go to our closing, which the other people weren't going to be there. It was just our real estate agent and our lawyer and whatever. But I've been just wearing sweats around the house because I've been so busy packing and purging and, organizing and all that kind of stuff. And we haven't had the house cleaned during this process because why? It's just we're tearing it apart. It'll be cleaned after we leave this week. And there's monstrous sized dust bunnies in some of the corners at this point. I haven't really been pulling myself together all that much. And I was like, all right, if we're going to go sign these papers at the lawyer's office, I should probably put on some real pants. But then I got home and took them off and put my pajamas back on because I was like, not happening, Yeah. So back to my usual state of affairs. So it's good.
Fair enough. Yeah. So,
but I'm pumped
we
for
today.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is going to be a little bit of the Meagan show, right? I'm going to Meagan was like, surely you do a lot. I'm going to put this out there for being an aggressive academic homeschoolers. we do shockingly little goal setting and goal planning. So I think it's going to be interesting to hear the differences between how much goal setting and planning and like how all in the unschooler is versus the like we're quite, structured with our schooling and education, but man, goal setting. I got thoughts and then I got no thoughts. So
Yeah, you surprised me because I put together some notes and I texted Amanda and I was like, hey, I threw some notes together for our recording, blah, blah, blah. She was like, that's not really like any of what I like. That's just not my scene. And I'm thinking to myself, surely you're just not understanding the topic. Like you must be doing this. You're just not, you just have to, you know, assimilate into the terminology maybe or something, no, apparently. So I'm excited. I'm pumped to hear how you pull off all that you do because you guys do so much.
do a ton. It's true. We do a ton and don't do any of this. Who knows?
Yeah, I did know. Okay,
Let's
so
do it.
when I was kind of jotting down my own notes, I broke it into two sections and I have like goal setting and stuff. And then I have like vision boarding. And I did know when I got to the vision boarding part. And as I was typing the words, I was like, Amanda's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, so I did have that prediction, but I thought you'd be with me on the goal setting part. I figured I'd lose you at vision boarding, but it's all good.
You will be probably surprised to know that I have done more vision boarding than I have goal setting in my life.
I don't even know you right now.
Well, I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Fair warning, if you're watching this on video, I will squirm this entire recording because I'm sitting in a dog bed and I'm 43 and I'm not built for that. So I've just done my first squirm of the session and it'll probably continue. Okay, so let's talk goal setting, vision boarding, hitting the reset button in general. So I think the first thing to realize is that you can always hit the reset button in homeschooling. I mean, we kind of timed this episode thinking we're winding down the end of the year, like Amanda said. Once we hit the burr months, as people like to joke around, like, October, November, December, it just flies, right? Like they start and then you blink and they're over. So we kind of were looking at this thinking, okay, this is a great time to start forward thinking for January, what you might change and stuff like that. But I think that that's one of the important realities of homeschooling is you don't have to wait till the end of the school year. You don't have to finish the end of the workbook. You don't have to do any of these things. If something isn't working, you can change course tomorrow, right? Today, do it today. Why wait till tomorrow? What you can do today, right? So yeah, I think that that's kind of the key is you do not have to suffer through and plug along and punish yourself and everyone in your household by doing something that's not working for you.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge believer in that, right? I joke about the fact that we don't do goals or any of that sort of thing, but I do really believe I believe in the, like the good college try. We say that a lot in our house, like give it a month. Maybe you need 2 months if you're living in our life where there's a lot of random trips and travel and things like that thrown in. You can't really judge something based on an off week. If you haven't had a single week of 5 days of school and you usually do 5 days of school, you can't really say, well, this isn't working because you haven't actually given it a chance to work.
Right.
But if you've given it a chance to work and it's just not working, right? There's no reason to continue to push through. So for us, I usually tell other people a month. For us, really, I usually give it around 2 months before I throw in the towel, just again, because of how kind of wonky our schedule is and how much it changes and stuff like that. But yeah, if it's not working, there are so many things to learn. There's so many things to learn and there's so many ways to learn it.
Yeah.
Like why hate what you're learning?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, and if you're new or considering homeschooling, right? I saw a lot of posts today for some reason in various Facebook groups that I'm in, specifically related to starting homeschooling kindergarten and preschool. Like I'm talking probably 6 to 8, and I haven't been online that much today.
Yeah, but it's because it's time. So here in California, this is the time that you have to start registering for school in next year. So you have to, right now is like open enrollment for any, like if you don't want to be in your neighborhood school, if you're looking at charter schools, or if you're wanting to choice into another neighborhood school, this is the time you have to get those applications in. So that's why. Yeah.
I'm disconnected from all of that stuff because I mean, my kids are so much older, and at some point, my oldest went to kindergarten for a very short period of time, and I hated it. But yeah, it didn't occur to me that that's so interesting. Okay, so yeah, and so specifically for the younger years, I've been seeing a number of posts, right?
So, but this is also the time that a ton of people are like,
This isn't
this
working.
school year, my kid is in public school, and like, this is horrible. And I think that maybe we need to pull them out and do homeschooling. And so I think it's important to remember, right?
Mm.
Like, it doesn't matter how you got here. It doesn't matter how long you've been here, whether you're a seasoned homeschooler or you're just getting started. Hopefully you listened to some of our earlier episodes and you didn't spend a ton on curriculum, because if
Yes.
you've spent a ton on curriculum, it's a lot harder to be like, this isn't working, I'm going to try something new. Because you're like, but I can't get work. And just, but for all of us, right? And I'm sure even just in our own house, right? I was just telling our oversight teacher, actually, I think for the month of December, we're going to back off of most of our curriculum. And I just have all of these books that I've collected over time, like a lot of science books and some history books and things like that, that are all great and they'd be fun for just regular reading. But I think I just want to use them and, like get them read, and then maybe we can donate them or clear out that shelf space or whatever. And so we're going to back off of a lot of our regular stuff. And for December, just do a lot of fun reading and, some documentaries and all this kind of list of all of these fun things that we haven't been able to get to because our schedule's been so insanely busy lately.
Nice.
And you know what? And that's okay. You can make it look in December. It's good for us, right? My husband's going to be gone for some of December. Then we're going to be gone for some of December. I have to host a couple big events in December that make, just are really draining and take a lot of time. And there's still a lot going on. So it's a good time to back off. And then we're traveling for January and February. So we'll have to have a new plan for January and February, because I'm not bringing our entire bookshelf with us to learn while traveling. So you can constantly be tweaking and retooling and still be getting plenty out of your education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think I mentioned in maybe our very first episode, I can't even recall, but when I decided to possibly maybe homeschool, because I was really nervous about it in the beginning, I went to the library and I cleared the entire bookshelf of homeschool books. I took all of them because that's how it's all or nothing, right? And one of the biggest themes that I still remember, after book after book after book after book, was that homeschooling should not feel hard. It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like a Disney movie where you open the windows and sing to forest animals. No, it's a lot of work. But it shouldn't be painful. You shouldn't be in tears every day. You shouldn't feel like you're failing. None of that should be happening. If you are, you need to tweak, right? It shouldn't feel that way. There's plenty of ways to do it that you will feel successful, that your kids will enjoy learning, and all of the above. So that's kind of one of the things that I've always had in mind when I'm homeschooling. And the reality is, if it's not working and you and your kiddo are both frustrated, or you're both in tears, or you're annoyed with each other, or whatever is the case, right? They're not going to fix it. They're not. They're the kid, right? It's on you to take a step back and say, what could we be doing differently? There's got to be a better way to do this. What could we do? And you take a step back and troubleshoot it. Go to other parents and say, here's where we're getting stuck, right? And blow up the system and do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it shouldn't be on the kids.
No.
It should be a conversation.
Yeah.
It should totally be a conversation about, hey, I feel like this isn't working and I think we need to change something, but I'm not sure. And maybe you say, these are my ideas. What do you think? Maybe you say, this is my non-negotiable. Do you have any non-negotiables in this scenario? Right? What that discussion looks like can definitely vary from family to family. It can vary from subject to subject. It can vary from season to season. Yeah, from kid to kid. But definitely, if your kid is in soccer or something like that, then your non-negotiables are going to be different during soccer season and outside of soccer season. But it needs to be a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and like you said, you're going to kind of shift course a little bit in December. And I feel like a lot of people do that, right? We used to do,
Yeah.
I mean, we're unschoolers anyway, so we don't have a strict school schedule the rest of the time. But when my kids were younger, especially, we did a lot of service work in December. That was kind of like our month of time. And we had different themes and the kids would come up with them. And sometimes it would be like reading to puppies at the animal shelter because they wanted to go see puppies. And I was fine with that. The idea is still there. They would do all kinds of stuff. But a lot of times people shift focus during the holiday months, the winter months. And so it's really a great time to kind of take stock and say, what's working? What isn't working? And then once you've identified what's working, you can figure out, okay, well, how can I lean into that more and adjust the stuff that isn't working? How can I make those changes and adjust and come back in January feeling refreshed and set up for success and ready to go?
Yeah. And I will say, if you are a more academic homeschooler, maybe the reframing that you need to do is not so much how do I lean into that more, but why is this working? Why is this one thing working? What parts of it are working so well? And is there a way that I can add those kinds of parts into something else? If this math curriculum or this ELA curriculum is going really well, okay, yes, that ELA curriculum, you love Hearth and Story ELA and your kid's doing it and it's going really well. Yeah, there's not a Hearth and Story for science or for math. But what parts in that curriculum are going well? Why does it work? What are those pieces? And then you can tweak what you're looking for in your science curriculum or in your math curriculum to include that. I need something that has, only 5 or 10-minute lessons that we can break up, or they have it broken down in a way that's smaller chunks that are more manageable and my kiddo enjoys. Or maybe I need something that comes with a daily calendar that they can see, whatever it is that's really working for them in that specific curriculum. See, and ask in your groups,
Yes.
People are so happy to share. If you give specific, this works really well for my kiddo. And so I am looking for this that has this, this, and this. You will get great recommendations.
Yeah.
If you just go on and say, tell me about your favorite curriculum, that's a useless question.
Exactly.
You're going to get such a wide range and you're probably going to get bombarded with people trying to sell you stuff. But if you are really specific, the vast majority of people who have been homeschooling for any period of time are happy to say like, oh, we did this one. And I think, you should totally look into that. Like it didn't work for us for XYZ, but it has what you're asking about, ABC, People are happy to share. For the most part.
Yeah. And asking that targeted question. I see posts all the time that are like, our ELA curriculum isn't working. We need to find something new. What do you like? Okay, well, what have you already tried? And why isn't it working? Right?
Yeah.
What kind of learner do you have? How old is your learner? The number of posts that I see asking for curriculum recommendations that don't even include the kid's age. And it's like, well, obviously, if your kid is in 11th grade and college bound, my suggestion, I mean, I don't suggest curriculum, but my suggestion in theory would be way different than, a first grader who's putting some basic sentences together, right? It has to include that information. Otherwise, it's just completely useless responses that you're getting. They're not targeted. They're not going to be helpful. And you're really not, I was going to say you're not any further ahead than before you asked the question, but in reality, I think you're actually behind where you were when you started because now you have too many options that are just muddying the waters, right? And there's no clear direction there. So really be as specific as you possibly can. And my favorite is then when you see these requests like that and they're super not specific, but people are answering it. And it's like, it's really just like throwing stuff at the wall. I mean, there's no direction there. I used to be in a lot of Facebook groups for cake decorating and things like that, because that's what I did for a really long time. And I still teach confectionery arts. And there's a joke that kind of circulates in the cake decorating groups where somebody will say, like, they'll text you, like, how much is a cake? And the response is like, how long is a piece of string? Because it's like, okay, there's 4,000 variables that I'm going to need you to fill in there before I can tell you how much a cake costs. So
yeah, is it a sheet cake for, whatever, or is it like a wedding cake? Because those are really different things.
Yeah, I'm going to need a little bit more info, right? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to say we're like halfway through this episode. And so far, you're like pretty on top of with the goal setting and the tweaking of things. I'm just saying for your being out of your element, we're doing good here, Okay. Here's where I might lose you though.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a huge fan of writing goals down. I love to-do lists. I love writing goals down. I love being able to check things off of a to-do list. And I like being able to accurately assign lengths of time to particular goals. It's really amazing to sit down and say, we're going to get these 4 things done in the next 2 months. But how long do each of those things take? Can you reasonably do that? And I think sometimes that's part of the reason why people feel like they're not successful in their homeschooling, or they're feeling overwhelmed, or they're feeling like they're not doing enough, is because they might set a goal where they go, hey, I'm going to get these 4 things done. And then maybe they quote unquote only do 2, but they really did a great job with those 2, but then they feel like they failed because they didn't do half the things they set out to do, right? But maybe those other 2 things were never reasonable to begin with. So it makes sense to create what are called SMART goals. And we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode. I had said SMART goals are straight out of corporate America. I spent 10 horrific and soul crushing years in corporate America, and SMART goals were the be all and end all of HR, right? It's an acronym. So it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And so basically you're laying out what exactly you're trying to achieve with that specific goal. So if it's a matter of preparing for a field trip to Yellowstone National Park this summer, and you want to study about geothermal features and bison before you go, great. Let's be pretty specific about what we want to do and how we want to accomplish that. Then it's going to be measurable. Measurable is a little bit less in the corporate world. It would be like achieved, 82% of sales goal, right? In the homeschooling world, if you're testing and stuff, measurable is super easy. I've never been one to test. My measurable is really usually more, did we do it or did we not do it? But if you're homeschooling in a little bit more of a structured fashion, it would probably be easier for you to measure something. Is it attainable? Do you have the time to do that? Like Amanda brought up soccer season a little while ago. If it's the peak of soccer season and your kid is on a traveling team and they're going to be gone every single weekend between now and whatever, and they have double practices and they have team events and commitments and all this kind of stuff, and you're thinking, I want to get these 4 things done. Is that attainable? Should we pick one thing to get done and worry about the other 3 during the off season? Is it relevant? Okay, I talk about this all the time. People are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but we talked about it in our very first episode. I'm a huge fan of having a list of what the reasons why you homeschool and kind of what your long-term vision is with your homeschooling. I think it's really easy to join a whole bunch of homeschool Facebook groups, which we are both in a million of them, right? And go in there and somebody will post, hey, look at this cool book I got. Hey, we did this cool unit study thing. We baked this baklava while we were learning about whatever, right? It gets really easy to get distracted, right? Like, ooh, squirrel, and take off into a new direction. Is the thing that you're setting out relevant to your long-term goals? Does it fit into your overall picture of what this school year is going to look like, or what your long-term vision is for homeschooling? Because it's really easy to get distracted. There's 10 trillion resources out there. They're not all, first of all, you can't physically do all of them. Second of all, they're not all relevant to your child, your goals, your objectives. So just kind of bounce that off. Like, am I doing this because some mom in a homeschool group said it was really cool? Or am I doing it because it's relevant to what I actually want to be accomplishing and what my kids are aiming for? And then setting time-bound goals. And that was the part that I kind of started out with. I like being able to sit down and break even a task down into mini chunks. So my daughter in particular is a huge fan of time-bound goals and breaking down really big goals into smaller goals. And we have printed over the course of our years homeschooling so many printable calendars. I can't even tell you. We'll go onto Google and just put November 2024 printable calendar and grab a Google image, make it an 8.5 by 11, print it out, and then always pencil, because you need to shift, you need to adjust, you need to be flexible. And then we sit and break down a task. Okay, so if this large goal of yours has 10 steps, step number 1, how many days do you think is reasonable to accomplish that? And we'll sit and kind of go through that together. How many days do you think step 2 is? And we build in buffers. We're a huge fan of building in buffers. Set yourself up for success, give yourself a little bit of time, and work through those goals. And she's always got a big wall calendar, and she's Xing out and she's putting on there, okay, I can do this here and that'll take me a half a day. So that leaves me the other half a day where I can, dedicate that time to this goal. It's awesome to say, I want to do a unit study on Yellowstone before we go. But look at the unit study. What are the components of the unit study? How many days is it going to be? If there's a day that involves baking something, I don't know, huckleberries are big in that region. Maybe you're making a huckleberry pie. I don't know. Whatever the unit study has, right? Is that a day? That's going to be a day where you're going to have a lighter day because you're going to want to be able to get in the kitchen and make a mess and clean up the mess and enjoy the pie at leisure instead of cramming it in before you're rushing out the door to go do something else. Break those things down, because I think it's really easy otherwise to go, this week I swore would be the week that we'd finally start that Yellowstone thing, and we didn't even touch it. And here it is on Friday and I completely suck, right? I think it's so easy to fall into that trap if you're not goal setting and breaking things down and really trying to organize your thoughts with your goals.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think in our house, part of the reason that we don't do a lot of this is
because you hate unit
because
studies.
I mean, partly because of what you were just explaining and describing, right? And like the need for creating these goals and these timelines and these projects. I'm like, no, no. So much extra work. Like, no. But that it's a certain personality type that enjoys that level of structure and then the flexibility within that level of structure. And we do have it to an extent, right? I have talked previously about the fact that I kind of plan the whole year out. And then from there, I definitely plan in, at least 5 or 6 weeks of buffer time for whatever we may do. And I expect that we'll end up wrapping some stuff up over the summer because we don't get it finished during the school year. So we have kind of a general timeline of what we think we're going to finish. And most of the time we get close. And for the most part, I don't worry about it. I don't worry about actually finishing in that timeline, because for me, for better or worse, my measuring stick is, well, did the public school kids finish their math book?
Yeah.
Like, no, they did not.
That's a valid measuring stick, though. They're not.
Yeah. That's it. They didn't get their textbook finished. They didn't get their math book finished. They didn't get their whatever finished. And what they did finish, they didn't learn nearly as much as my kiddo did because of the way that he studied it and what we did with it. So, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
We learned a lot of things, and we're good to move on and learn what we want to learn next. But yeah, I can comfortably say I'm not doing SMART goals. If it's your thing, again, by all means, like, go on with it. Like, and maybe we'll find a way. It's a little hard. It's a little hard to see because it's maybe we can find a different graphic, or we can actually share SMART goals like on our Instagram and somewhere else where maybe it's each letter or something is its own screen, so people can actually read it and see it in case it's something that's like that really appeals to you. Megan's provided me a great graphic. I'm like, it looks really pretty. That's awesome. I'm glad you like that.
I'm not doing it. But yeah, it's great. Nice.
Looks really pretty.
It's so funny to me because I am the loosey-goosey one who's like, burn the establishment down. And I love goal setting and all of that. I think, and we'll talk about vision boarding in a second too, but I think it loops into kind of creating this big picture of like, what is the life that you want to create? And what is the vehicle that you want to use to get there? And how do you want to get there? And so goal setting has been huge for us for years and years and years. So I quite enjoy it. So I'm absolutely I'm not judging that you're not a goal setter. I'm just surprised that you're not a goal setter. Like, I totally thought that you'd be like, yes, this is exactly how I do it.
Yeah.
And I love learning new things about people all the time. That's super fun.
Okay, so did you know that Homeschool Moms Unfiltered has been on Apple Podcasts top 200 chart for how-to podcasts for several weeks now? We didn't really either. We're pretty excited to have learned that recently. But we love hearing from followers and fellow homeschoolers who find our episodes helpful, both in their own homes, right? And in sharing them with friends, siblings, and grandparents who want to know better so they can do better, right? That's what we're all working towards. If we know better, we can do better.
Yep.
So much of what we talk about is more than just the nuts and bolts of homeschooling. It's about raising healthy, happy, well-adjusted children and having a happy, healthy family life as a whole, right? So if there's someone in your life that might really benefit from giving us a listen, even if they aren't homeschooling, please share us. Like, send the link to them. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Castbox, really just about anywhere and everywhere that people use for podcast listening. So share a link, if especially, like just just last week, my mom was like, oh, the one on executive functioning skills. Like, there were so many things in there that I didn't know anything about. I'd never learned that. I'd never heard it. And it was really helpful to think about it in the context of the grandkids.
Right.
She's got 3 grandsons. And like, what does that look like? And who knows, maybe your mom will be the same way, or maybe your mother-in-law, right? Maybe they'll get something useful. Feel free to send that link along. We also have things that are just talking about how the frontal lobe develops and how it works. We have things that are talking about how to better manage your time. We have things that are talking about understanding neurodivergence and the importance of understanding what that looks like in practical day-to-day life and when trying to do educational stuff. And that absolutely applies to kids that are in brick and mortar schools, kids who are doing alternative education, homeschoolers, and the caregivers who are in their lives, right? Like, there are plenty of things that go above and beyond homeschooling that do also obviously apply to homeschooling, because we're with the kids day in and day out. But, by all means, share it. Anything that's helpful, right? Resources. Yeah, we love resources, especially ones that don't require we try to track down a book and actually find the time to read it.
Exactly. Yeah. If I can listen to something while I'm folding laundry or, running to the grocery store, I'm in. I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for vision boarding, Amanda?
So I have to tell you, when I saw the outline for today's episode and I saw the thing on vision boarding, I was like, oh my God, to my husband. I'm like, do you remember that book that we both read independently, but we knew that we had both read it in the early 2000s about like making a vision board and like whatever? I'm like, I cannot remember. And he was like, The Secret. And oh my God, I had been on Google searching and searching and searching, trying to find this damn book so that I could mention it. And I'd be like, the last time I really like went all in on this was when I read The Secret and was like, I'm going to give this a try. And I could not remember the name of it. I couldn't find the image. I couldn't anything. And he just like pulled straight out of his head from more than 20 years ago, this book that we both read. That tells you how rarely we read the same books. So yeah, I there was a short period of time where I was all about vision boarding and the law of attraction. And now I live in California, where like I feel like there's so much this, like the stuff around this. There's definitely a bit of a cult following with a lot of it.
Yeah.
And some of the people that really push it. What do you have for us?
Manifesting your reality and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to manifest the shit out of my reality.
Hold on. I just finished editing last week's episode where you were like, like raw. I forget the exact word you used, but it was like, kind of like a raw, vulnerable moment for you. Okay. So this is not on the same level of depth by any stretch of the imagination, but I can tell you that I have believed in manifesting destiny for so long that I have a tattoo that I didn't realize had kind of a double meaning. And people started using it in dirty ways. So I'm a huge of visualizing something and making it a reality, right? So I have, like all good people who are in their 40s, have a Chinese character tattoo. I mean, that's like what you did, right? What you did when you were 20, 18, 19, 20, right? Of course. Mind you, I never thought to actually ask someone who speaks Chinese before I tattooed it on my body what it actually said. Like, for all I know, it could say like chokin dumplings or whatever, right? Thankfully, I did after the fact check it, and it does say what I thought it said, so that's good. But I have a tattoo on my lower back, and this is where it gets dirty, the placement, and it says grab hold of your destiny. And grab stamp says grab hold of your destiny. That's in a really sensitive area of like, but I was all about manifesting.
Yeah.
I never thought that somebody was going to use it as like cop a feel because it was a directional guide, But at least it does say that. And it's not like a Chinese food menu that I tattooed on my body without checking. So that should be a lesson in your homeschool. Like, even if you're against tattoos, there's a decent chance your kids are going to go out and get them anyway at some point. If they are going to tattoo something on their body in a foreign language, they should check it. If they're going to put any words on their body, they should have it spell checked by multiple people, right? All of these things are life skills that should be happening.
Life skills.
Yeah, that was my only wording tattoo. I have another one. I forgot I had those words on this one too. But yeah, and also in a foreign language. But this one I was smart. I was older. I was smart enough to check and make sure it actually said what I thought it said before I put it on my
Your
body.
frontal lobe was a little bit more developed.
Well, they developed
better choices. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So, vision boarding. So a vision board at its simplest form, right, is a collage or a visual representation of your dreams, goals, and desires. So there's a Dale Carnegie quote that is framed in my house, or at least it was until I boxed up everything we own. And I'm not a Dale Carnegie junkie, but it was in a book that my daughter had to read for school at one point. I don't remember what the book was, kind of like you in The Secret. I don't remember what the book was. It wasn't available in an audiobook, and my kid only really learns in audio format. She has some processing challenges that come from visually reading. So I read the book out loud to her, and it involved this Dale Carnegie quote. And the two of us, when we both read it, we were like, we had a moment, right? So it got printed and framed, but it said, keep your mind on the great and splendid things you would like to do. And then, as the days go gliding away, you will find yourself unconsciously seizing upon the opportunities that are required for the fulfillment of your desire. And so basically, it's you're having a hard time keeping it together.
Be respectful. Talk to my face. It is not quiet. We started the episode by talking about the people. My face is not quiet. I'm sorry.
Oh, as I was typing, so I was like, Amanda's gonna shit herself.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of the quote. I might put it in I don't know, maybe I'll get it in Japanese on my body.
You should. You should. And you know what? Don't even just go with it. Don't even bother to see if it's spelled correct. Shouldn't Google Translate and see what happens.
Okay. So I'm a huge fan of visualizing, and yes, we did just talk about goal setting. So there is an element of that quote that just says all you have to do is think it and it'll magically happen, right? And I do think there is some of that law of attraction thing that happens, but we are also goal setters. So if we're saying, okay, this is what I would like to achieve, we will think, okay, well, what might I need in order to achieve that thing? There's probably some skills or some foundation work that needs to be done in order for me to achieve that. How can I put those steps into action? How can I break those steps down into manageable chunks? So these two concepts, the goal setting and the vision boarding, for us are super linked. So my kids have been vision boarding. My youngest has been vision boarding since he's 6 or 7. And we would sit and work together to figure out what would go on the vision board. And this was, so Amanda has her big Google sheet of curriculum for the year and her lesson plans and all that she turns. This is our school roadmap, right? This is, what do you want to learn? What are you most interested in? What kind of projects do you want to do? What sorts of things do you want to set your sights on? And that's how we're creating our roadmap for a month, a quarter, a year. Some goals are short-term goals that are on there. Some things are long-term goals that are on there. I mean, I know adults who have on there, be debt-free and retire by 50. That's not something that's going to come off in a month, right? But, eat a salad every day for a month. That's going to come off sooner, hopefully, right? Hopefully they'll be a little bit more attainable or more quickly attainable. Sometimes there are things that might stay on there for months or years even before you attain those things. So in our household, I would sit down with each kid and talk to them about what those are. Now, I can almost guarantee you, if you talk to your kid, if you sit down with a 7-year-old, a 15-year-old, whatever, and say, what do you want to work on this fall semester? They're going to be like, I don't know. Right. I mean, I think until you really start to get this thought process down, it's really hard to just pluck things out of thin air and expect these kids to do that. And I think you're setting yourself up for a pretty frustrating discussion if you go about it that way, where you're like, here I am trying to lighten things up and give them some more control over their education and do this interest-led thing. And I ask them and they don't even have any ideas, right? And
it's too much. It's too big of a spectrum for them to try to pull ideas from. So we would pull things like, what are the things that you find yourself Googling the most? What are things that when you're laying in bed at night, you're super excited about and they keep your brain racing and you can't fall asleep? And those are the sorts of questions that I would ask to dig in and figure out what were their true interests, what they were spending a lot of time thinking on, because things that you're already naturally thinking about are your interests. So, but it's a matter of being able to ask those questions in a way to help them identify those things. And so one of my kids would say, I really want to build a robot. Oh, awesome. What kind of robot? And we dig in. What does that look like? We would look into robotics events. We would look at kits that you could buy. We would email people, ask questions, etc., and figure out what that might look like for him. And then when it came time to putting something, a physical manifestation of that thing on the vision board, they would choose the image. It needed to be an image that resonated with them, that was powerful for them, or a word, or whatever the case might be. And they would have their vision board there. And I know you've talked, Amanda, in a previous episode about if your kiddo was, I'm bored, and you've got a solution for I'm bored, which is I'll give you something to do. And we also don't have the I'm bored problem, because you're never bored, because you've got a whole visual, beautiful thing there that says, these are all the things that I'm interested in and that I'm super keen to explore. So if I have downtime and I'm not really sure what to do with myself, oh my gosh, now would be a great time for me to go work on my robot. And so that's been kind of our steering mechanism for a really long time now. We would have periodic meetings to figure out what needed to come off the board. If it was something where you explored it and you're like, this robot is frustrating the hell out of me. Well, first of all, we try to troubleshoot that first, right? And see, do we need more resources? Do we need a class? Is it this particular kit? Is it the tools that you have aren't working? But if it's just something where you're like, I thought I was really interested in robots, but now I started doing them and this is not fun, or this is not interesting, or I'm no longer interested, you can take something off your vision board. I mean, as adults, we let things go. Our kids are allowed to let things go too. So there's that. And then we would have an achievements folder. So if you set a goal to do something and you built your robot and you competed in a robotics competition, or you took it to an event, or whatever the case might be, you would take your robot off your vision board and put it in your achievements folder. If you're in a state that requires portfolios, or if you're working on building a transcript, that achievement folder is your portfolio and transcript. So it all dovetails in with your accountability for your homeschooling as well. So for us, that's been vision boarding in a nutshell.
So I'm gonna keep it nice. I'm gonna say on the flip side, like I said, I was all in on vision boarding for a few years, and it was an interesting point in my life. It happened at an interesting time in my life, in my mid to late 20s. And I will say that pretty much everything I had on my vision boards, I achieved. But what I found was that I am a very goal-oriented achiever. And in the process of achieving these things, I didn't actually get what I needed or wanted out of life. And they didn't fulfill me in the way that I wanted them to. They didn't enrich my life in the way that I envisioned they would. And at the same time, I first got sick and became disabled. So these things were happening at the same time. And I realized for me that setting these kinds of specific targeted goals and actively working towards them were actually counterproductive to a happy, healthy, fulfilling life. And so if you're listening to us and you're like, goals don't work for me, I find them overwhelming, or I find this, or I find that, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting here going, I think I want to give it a try and see how it works, give it a try and see. You might come down one way or the other. You might come down somewhere in the middle. It might work in some ways. It might not work in other ways. I am curious about the idea of trying it with my kiddo, but I do think that in some ways he's probably more like me. And I'm not positive that it will be great. I think that vision boards are especially good for people who like to have very specific interests and go deep on those interests and stay focused on those interests. For me, I found I had to change my vision board a lot because I was doing all kinds of different things. And I was achieving a lot of things. I was working really hard to achieve a lot of things, and I got them. I had the little check on there with how much I was going to make it work, and the pay rate, and these kinds of things. And I, like I said, I got all of them, but it didn't enrich my life. It didn't improve my life in the way that I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a different approach to things. Yeah. And that leads a lot of what's happening in our.
Right. I'm sitting here wondering how your vision board items could be less task oriented and more personal fulfillment oriented, right? I've done those. So I tried vision boarding my anxiety away at one point, which FYI, if you can do it, more power to you. Mine became a receipt from Walgreens, and that was that was how my I shouldn't say went away, because anxiety doesn't really go right. I tried, and so that was my goal, right? Was to find that serenity and all of that through some of those things. And there you go. That's a great example. My vision board, literally the center of it was the word serenity. It was just looking for peace, right? And so you might be able to vision board that, or you might need to go to Walgreens and get a prescription. One way or the other, you'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. Well,
so you have to find what works for you.
Right. And for me, my process of finding serenity was letting go of that. And being like, you know what? I don't have to be actively working towards it. I can get there. I can naturally get there and find peace and happiness and fulfillment in the everyday things.
Well, that's fantastic.
Instead of constantly trying to achieve the next thing, constantly trying, like just more of a general, I want to learn more. I want to be a better person. I want to constantly improve, but not have I have to learn more in this direction. I have to improve in that direction.
Right.
And yeah, letting go of the vision board made me a happier person.
The vision board in your accomplishments folder. The end, right? But I think for people who are out there who are maybe exploring unschooling or trying to figure it out, or you're new to it and you're trying to figure it out, I think there's a lot of, what do I do now? Because I'm committing to this, or I'm wanting to try it, or we are doing it, and I don't know what to do all day, right? I have no idea if I'm not requiring them to do stuff and they just want to play games all day, or they just want to do this all day, right? What do we do? So for us, vision boarding and goal setting have given us that structure, right? This is what we're going to do all day. The kids don't wake up and be like, well, I have 12 hours. What the heck am I supposed to do with myself? Because I don't go to school. I don't have schoolwork to do. What am I supposed to do with myself? I am now in a position where I have to peel the kids back. So it's like, there's too much. You're going to have to let some of this go. This cannot all happen. And that goes back to the SMART goals. Is this attainable? Is what you are setting yourself up for here attainable? And they're like, probably not. Okay. So then at that point, I'm going to need you to prioritize, what do you want to keep there? And what do you want to say, okay, this will be for January of next year, but I cannot fit that in with the other timelines that I have at the remainder of this year. And so it's been really, really helpful for us in kind of providing that structure, but it's not coming from me. I'm steering and I'm guiding, but I'm not dictating. And so if you're trying to figure out more of an interest-led approach, for us, this was the vehicle that helped us figure out what that looks like.
Yeah. No, and we've joked often on this whole episode, but I do think that there's a lot to be said for that, right? The more active hands-on approach with goal setting, and whether you're using SMART goals or you're using vision boards and collages and those sorts of things to help guide, versus if you are being a more academic, aggressive homeschooler where you're kind of following along with general state standards. I'm not, Meagan was like, well, surely you keep track of the state standard. I don't actually keep track of them that closely, but I do use it for a guide to help me make sure that I haven't forgotten things or missed things. For me, it's more about, just a general, well-rounded, knowledge of all the things, because I think that my kiddo is like me and will go through many different careers and many different paths. And I don't think that what he's actually into now will probably be his first career in his adult life, or even maybe his third career in his adult life. And whereas, his dad has kind of went into a career and he stayed with that his whole life. And he's had the same hobbies since high school. And that he's a really singular focused it doesn't sound nice, but he's got this focus, and they haven't really shifted or changed all that much over time. He stays in tech, he works in it, he continues to use these same skills. I don't have that kind of focus. I went to school for theater, and then I went into politics, and then I did nonprofit, and then I did education, and I did refugee resettlement, and I did college fundraising, and now I volunteer and I'm doing a homeschooling podcast. And and who knows, I keep thinking about like, oh, it might be fun to become like a court moderator, or like mediator, not moderator, a mediator, like I just that's me. And for better or worse, my kiddo seems to have picked up some of those tendencies. And how you use that, and how you direct that, and how you make that work is something that you just have to figure out for yourself. And that's okay. If there's anything that we hope you really get from this podcast, it's that there are lots of ways to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of ways to do homeschooling right. And just because you're doing it, just because you're doing it differently doesn't mean it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We're not quite to our mantra yet, so that's just an extra nugget. Okay, don't take that as the mantra. All right. So I would like to say, if you would like to discuss vision boarding or goal setting, especially with Meagan, or
I think
your
it would be
long
fun now
lesson
to have
planning,
a conversation about it.
Yeah,
your face.
Let me tell you
all the time.
You're gonna be there for comedic relief. You should totally come join us for a live online discussion. We hold a monthly Q&A session literally every month with our Patreon subscribers, and we would be happy to dig into these topics or any other kind of topic that you've got specific questions about. It's a great time for us to be able to have like an actual conversation. If you send us a message, we will try to respond. We will try to be helpful, but to actually dig into how we're doing these things, or for us to really be able to help you with your questions, this is a great, really affordable way. So you can find it by going to our spiffy new website, homeschoolmomsunfiltered.com, for more information. There's a little icon up in the top left corner with a link to our Patreon. You'll also find info there on our monthly themed unit studies. So yeah, come join us on Patreon. It's a great new resource. We launched it fairly recently, and we think you would enjoy it. So this week, we've got a slight change of pace, right? It has been the Meagan show, and that's okay. Amanda's sitting here trying hard not to make terrible faces over the idea of goal setting and vision boarding. I failed. But usually, I'm the stuff pusher, right? I'm the one that's like, hey, I got something for homeschooling. I got a curriculum I love. I've got it. But this week, I humbly passed the baton to Meagan.
I know I'm usually not the stuff person because we're pretty low maintenance as far as buying curriculum and things like that. You've always got all the goods, but I know I do have one this week. So here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Recommended resources. Do you need more homeschool supplies? No. Are you going to want these anyway? Absolutely.
And these are not typical homeschool resources in the sense that it's another math curriculum or another ELA curriculum. So, and I will admit that when I was researching and pulling together notes for the show, that my kids are older and it's been a while since we started our process of goal setting and vision boarding. So the current editions of this resource are newer than the ones that I had. I feel very old when I looked it up. I was like, oh, they don't even make the ones we used anymore. But if you're not familiar, Big Life Journal has two journal sets. One is for younger kids and one is for slightly older kids, where kids can kind of work through these beginnings of setting goals, realizing goals, getting to understand themselves better, how they tick, how they function. All of that is in there. So when my kids did it years ago, there was only one Big Life Journal. Now there's a young kid edition and there's a tween teen edition. So I haven't flipped through the new ones, but I can imagine that, like with most things, they've only gotten better as people have shared feedback and they've grown this resource and all of that. But I can highly speak to using Big Life Journal, the original, in your homeschool life. It's really great for kids having an understanding of who they are truly and just starting to lay that foundation. And if this is all new to you, it helps you have the vocabulary and the language and a tangible resource to kind of walk through those things, because it could be a little tough to go from a brick and mortar school environment to let's talk about the life you envision for yourself, right? Kind of a big leap. And so these are just nice resources to be able to open and go and to be able to sit and work through them. It asks kids to answer questions, and then you can discuss those questions and get to know a little bit more than you might if you're just having a conversation without having a tool or a vehicle in hand. Some people, that really helps steer their conversations a little bit better. So we will link them in our show notes and put them on our social media and all that good kind of stuff. So feel free, check them out. Like I said, they're newer versions than what I used, but Big Life Journal was a total rock star resource for us in the earlier years of our journey of goal setting and vision boarding.
Yeah, no, it looked really interesting. Not on my radar at all. And so I went and looked at them, right? Because I do the affiliate links that I pull for us to share. And so I was like, oh, interesting. And then I did see the one that was tweens and teens. And I thought, one of those things, it might be a good resource. Like I said, we have a couple months where we're going to be traveling. We'll be doing a little bit different stuff than what we normally do. And I usually try to pare it down so we aren't traveling with so many books. But it looked like it might be an interesting option to take with us for our next long world schooling trip, for like a chance to kind of focus on, for us, it would be that SEL piece, but also just that connection and better understanding each other and having something to kind of work through together if he wants to share it with me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we just did a whole thing a couple of months ago on transcripts and portfolios and all of that. That's all school. That 100% counts as school. So how you write that up, come talk to us, come to our Q&As. We'll help you. We'll help you document it based upon what your state requires of you. But yeah, that's all school. And it sets a great foundation for your kid to have a good understanding of who they are, where they want to go, who they want to be as a person, and how they can get there.
Yep, totally. All right. Well, I have the mantra for the day. So here we go. Today's mantra: just because it's the plan doesn't mean it has to stay the plan if it isn't working. It's always a good time to talk with your kiddos and make a new plan.
Do not suffer through homeschooling. Find a plan. Yeah. Even if your plan is showing up to talk to us and say, I'm suffering through homeschooling, what can I do?
Come, something has gone very wrong. None of us are happy with this choice. But
yeah, exactly. Come hang out with us. So until we see you live in one of our Zoom sessions, happy homeschooling.
Yeah, have a great one.